So not long ago, we sat right here and talked about whether or not the Oklahoma Sooners would not only shock college football fans, but shock SEC fans in their first year in a brand new environment. And today, we need to go deeper into that conversation. Today, we need to talk about and break down what Oklahoma must do to find success within the SEC in year one. And before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I've got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes, N for no. Do you believe Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners are set up for success year one in the SEC? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. That's not just relegated for myself. That's for any content creator who you enjoy their content. It really helps us get picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And one of the things we talked about in the video we did not too long ago, asking the question, will OU shock people around the nation in their first year in the SEC, is how Oklahoma has been set up. What a good job Brent Venables has done at identifying needs for the Sooners and then be able to address those needs. Whether that's through the transfer portal, whether that's through recruiting, whether that's through coaching hires. But today, we're going to take it a step further. We're going to talk about what Oklahoma must do to find success in year one in the SEC. And we are going to talk about a few key acquisitions that Oklahoma has got, both in the coaching department and in the player department, that I think really give them a leg up in this year one in the SEC. Because whenever we talk about the Oklahoma Sooners, we've talked about this on the roundtable discussions. Previously, Oklahoma was a team that you knew would score on you, but you knew they couldn't stop you from scoring. In comes Brent Venables. And the Oklahoma offense hasn't gone anywhere. Now, a new offensive coordinator inserts himself into the equation this year in Luttrell, but he is an experienced coach who knows what it takes to be successful. So you are in good hands there. But Brent Venables has totally adjusted the mindset at Oklahoma. And in my opinion, he's adjusted it in a manner that's far more conducive to success within the SEC. And that's one of the reasons why I have remained high on the Sooners' hopes and on the Sooners' futures. But whenever we talk about what Oklahoma must do to find success, luckily for Oklahoma fans, a lot of those things have already been done. Because I firmly believe Brent Venables, whether they knew for sure whenever he got there they were going to the SEC, when they would be going, he has been building up that team in an SEC likeness since he got there. Because he knows you have to have a good defense. You have to be a well-balanced team. You can have a great offense. That's all well and good. And I'm not stating that you have to have the best defense, nor am I stating if you have the best defense that you also have to have the best offense. But you cannot forego one side of the ball in favor of the other. One thing that has been proven time and time again, you have to have some level of competitive balance on your team. You have got to be both very good at offense and very good at defense if you're going to bring home a national championship. And at Oklahoma, they have national championship aspirations. But let's focus in. Let's talk about what they must do year one in the SEC to find success. And first and foremost, it's what you have to do in pretty much, every conference, but in the SEC, as we have had players on that have played both in the SEC and in other conferences, they've pointed out just makes the SEC a little bit different. That's the physicality in the trenches. It is a violent game everywhere, college football is, but in the SEC, you got a lot of Jimmies and Joes to go along with the X's and O's. Luckily, Oklahoma has made some key acquisitions on that defensive line. I'm looking at a Dominic Williams, who, in my opinion, was as big a win as anybody got in the spring portal window. That's a guy that's going to come in and day one give Oklahoma a different type of utility, a different type of ability up on that defensive line. He gives them a physicality and a proven physicality because, yes, there are several players for Oklahoma on that defensive front that you should be excited about. DeJoun Terry coming back, in my opinion, was massive. But outside of Terry, though you liked some of the guys, you just didn't have the key experience that so many coaches around college football want, especially whenever they're going into a transition year. That's why Dominic Williams is massive, because now you get to pair DeJoun Terry, and some of the other guys. I mean, you get some massive recruiting wins. I love a Jaden Jackson. I love a David Stone, and don't sleep on Jaden Jackson. I know he may not have been the 5-star. I think that guy was a real gem last class, and I'm very excited to see what he does. But Dominic Williams just gives you more flexibility along your defensive front, and that's really the name of the game. It allows you to have a deeper rotation, a more confident rotation, and it allows you to feel like you're going to be able, especially on the defensive line side, be competitive in the trenches. And that is your key to success in the SEC, especially when we go further back and you look at the linebacker room that the Oklahoma Sooners are fielding, where I'm a big fan of Danny Stutzman. Him coming back along with Billy Bowman is huge for the Sooners, but it's not just Danny Stutzman. They are 3 deep outside of Danny Stutzman and guys that could be playing elsewhere and that I'm very excited to see. Then you look at that secondary, a very experienced secondary. Remember, last time we sat down and talked, we talked about Oklahoma returning more production on the defensive side of the ball than any team in the SEC. Getting Dominic Williams only allows all of that to flourish at a higher level because one of the keys to college football, win trenches, generate pressure from the interior. If the Oklahoma Sooners can generate pressure from the interior, and if their edges can transition and start getting sacks and pressures on the quarterback, this Oklahoma defense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. One thing we know about Brent Venables, year 3, everywhere he's gone, you've seen a jump on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch what happens there. But then we talk about not only who they acquired via the transfer portal, we talk about who the coach is, and that's Todd Bates. This is a guy that understands what SEC football is all about. He played in the SEC. So he has an intimate understanding of what needs to be done in order to be successful, and in my opinion, that really helps out Oklahoma. Really gives them a leg up in terms of this transition and something that I think is very exciting. But let's transition to the other side of the football, and that's the offensive line. Because as I said, as it's true that you need to be able to win on the defensive side in the trenches, you must be able to win on the offensive side in the trenches. This is the area where I have questions for Oklahoma's offense. And remember, a lot of the times when you hear media members or content creators say, oh, I have a question about this, really they mean they have a concern. I will be honest with you. If I have a concern, I will tell you I have a concern. If I say I have a question, I have a curiosity. Let me explain. Oklahoma has to replace pretty much the entirety of their offensive line, but they have made some key acquisitions from the transfer portal, and they've got some really exciting pieces that I know OU fans are looking forward to. On top of that, they have the ultimate answer at offensive line, and that's Bill Bedenbaugh. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but Bill Bedenbaugh truly is a guy that gets the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion. He has orchestrated so many successful offensive lines, and even if they're not Joe Moore award-winning offensive lines, they're definitely good enough to get the job done. So when you look at this, though I have a question about what OU's offensive line is going to look like, you have to give Bill Bedenbaugh the benefit of the doubt because he has done so many good things at Oklahoma with that offensive line, sent so many guys to the NFL. You have to imagine that sooner rather than later, no pun intended, he's going to get that offensive line figured out. At what point? I don't know. What it will look like? I don't know. Who it will be comprised of? Not 100% certain. But you have to imagine he's going to be able to get it done. The other move that I love that Oklahoma made, and this isn't a new one, is Schmitty, your strength and conditioning coach. Oftentimes, that's a forgotten aspect of college football. But going into the SEC, you are going into a physical football league. And we've seen this. We've known this for a while. Oklahoma gets in a guy that already has familiarity with the program, already has familiarity with some of the staff, but more importantly than that, you got him from Texas A&M. You got him back from Texas A&M, I should say. He was already in the SEC. He already knows what a SEC strength and conditioning program should look like. That, to me, is big for Oklahoma. It's a fact that I don't see talked about as I believe it should be near enough, especially when you consider what you came from to what you have now, where now you have a guy that intimately understands what an SEC strength and conditioning program needs to look like for you to be successful. That, to me, is going to help Oklahoma in this transition. Now, one of the things Oklahoma already has is deep rooms at several different areas of this roster. You look at wide receiver, they've got a lot of talent. You look at running back, they've got a lot of talent. Linebacker, a lot of talent. Defensive back, a lot of talent. That competitive depth is also another key to finding success in the SEC, and this brings us back to something we've talked about time and time again, that Brent Venables has been awesome on the recruiting trail. In fact, has recruited at a higher level than the previous coaching staff was able to, both in terms of recruiting and in transfer portal acquisitions. And that's hyper impressive when you consider this is his first head coaching stint, but he has surrounded himself with really great assistant coaches. One of the things I talked about all the time that I love is if you can acknowledge what you don't know. Because at the point where you can acknowledge what you don't know, that's the only way you're going to be able to grow and learn more. In my opinion, Brent Venables surrounding himself with a lot of the guys he has is acknowledging, hey, I may be a new head coach at this point, but I know that. I know that I'm new. I know that I am now a CEO, and I know that because of that, I need to surround myself with guys who are going to be putting myself in a position to be successful, much as I will put them in a position to be successful. And he's made fantastic hires. You know how I feel about the Todd Bates hire. You know how I feel about retaining Bill Bedenbaugh. But Emmett Jones was a slam dunk hire, as was retaining DeMarco Murray. So when you look at what will happen for Oklahoma to have success year one in the SEC, you must have competitive depth. We can talk about Brent Venables' recruiting. You must be able to win on the line of scrimmage. We look at Todd Bates, someone who understands what the SEC is all about. And then you look in the acquisition you got in Dominic Williams, easily one of the biggest additions any team made during the spring window. We go to the offensive line, and though I know that's going to be the area where so many people who are going to question Oklahoma will begin, you can't ask that question and not factor in Bill Bedenbaugh into the equation. You just can't. The guy has been automatic for so long. That must be taken into account. So Oklahoma is an interesting team. They're not granted any favors by the SEC in terms of their schedule, a very difficult schedule, but at the end of the day, I really like what Brent Venables has done in preparation for this move, and all the things we talked about today must be checked off for them to find success in the SEC, and by extension, shock college football and SEC fans everywhere. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.